Stephen Dayo had spent the evening at one of those charity dinners his business partners insisted he attend. The hall was full of speeches, men showing off their wealth through watches and large donations. He had given money, shaken hands, and left quietly before midnight. When his driver dropped him at his glass-walled penthouse, Stephen wanted nothing more than silence and rest. He had not slept properly in almost a week and planned to collapse into bed after a drink. But the moment he closed the door behind him, someone grabbed him. A hand covered his mouth. His body stiffened, ready to fight. "Don't make a sound," a voice whispered. He froze, recognizing it. When the hand pulled away, he turned sharply and saw Maria, the new maid. The agency had sent her 2 weeks ago, after the last one left without notice. She lived in the maid's quarters, always quiet in her black uniform with the white apron tied neat. Her eyes darted toward the hallway. "Your son is finally asleep after many nights without rest. Please be quiet, if he wakes now, he may not sleep again." Since the nanny retired a few days earlier, no one had been watching Anderson at night. Maria had been staying back after her duties to make sure he was safe. That evening, at last, Anderson had closed his eyes. Stephen had not known any of this. Anderson had been struggling, and he had been too absent to notice. The truth weighed heavily on him. Wealth and success had kept him away from the one thing that mattered most, being present for his child. Stephen walked down the hallway and entered Anderson's room. He sat on the edge of the bed and touched his son's head gently. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have been here for you. I let work take me away when you needed me most." Stephen kept talking softly, saying he had thought giving him things would be enough, but what Anderson really needed was his father's presence. Anderson's eyes slowly opened. He looked up at his father and spoke in a tired voice. "Daddy." Stephen bent closer. "I'm here, son." "I've been waiting for you," Anderson said with a smile. Stephen held him close and told him he was sorry for not being around before, but he was here now. Anderson rested against his father and soon fell back asleep in his arms. Stephen kept holding him until he was sure Anderson was deep in sleep, then laid him back on the bed and kissed his forehead. When Stephen left the room, he saw Maria at the door. She had been watching quietly. He asked her how long she had known Anderson was not sleeping. "Since I started working here," Maria said. "He has not been sleeping. He just missed you." Stephen's chest grew tight. "Missed me?" "Yes," Maria said. "When children miss their parents, they don't always say it. But they feel it. My mother used to work many jobs. She wanted to buy me things, but that was not what I wanted. I only wanted her to be with me. Anderson feels the same way." Stephen thanked her for being there for his son, even though it was not part of her job, then went to his own room, carrying the weight of what he had learned that night. The next morning, Stephen woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in years, he was not rushing to get dressed for meetings or phone calls. Instead, he walked down the hallway toward his son's room. Anderson was still asleep, lying peacefully with the blanket pulled up to his chin. Stephen stood for a while, watching him, then went to the kitchen. Maria was already there, preparing breakfast. She looked surprised to see him. Normally, Stephen left the house before Anderson even woke up. "I will take him to school today," Stephen said quietly. Maria nodded, hiding her smile. She prepared an extra plate, and soon after, Anderson joined them. He looked confused at first when he saw his father sitting at the table, but his face quickly lit up. They ate together, and Stephen asked about his favorite foods, his classes, and his friends at school. Anderson answered slowly, as if unsure his father really wanted to hear, but his smile grew each time Stephen kept listening. After breakfast, Stephen drove Anderson to school. The boy kept glancing at him in the car, smiling shyly. At the school gate, he held his father's hand tightly before running inside. Stephen stayed there for a moment, realizing how much he had missed. Later that day, Stephen came home earlier than usual. He wanted to be there when Anderson returned. Maria met him at the door. "He will be happy to see you waiting," she said. Anderson came back with his small backpack, and when he saw his father standing by the door, his face broke into a big smile. He ran forward, hugging Stephen around the waist. That simple act made Stephen's chest tighten. In the evening, Stephen sat with Anderson at the dining table to do homework. He stared at the exercise book and frowned. They give children this kind of work, he muttered. Even grown men would think twice. Anderson giggled at his father's confusion and started explaining the answers. Stephen tried, failed a few times, then laughed with him. After homework, Stephen asked Anderson what he wanted to do. Anderson said he wanted to play football in the yard. Stephen followed him outside right away. They kicked the ball back and forth, Anderson laughing whenever his father missed a kick. Maria watched from the balcony, smiling softly. It was the first time she had seen Anderson laugh so freely. Later that night, Maria found Stephen in the living room. He looked thoughtful, holding a glass of water. I didn't realize I'd forgotten the sound of his laughter, Stephen admitted, his voice quiet. He sat quietly for a while, staring at the glass in his hand. His mother died when he was very young, Stephen said. It was sudden, an illness. One moment she was fine, the next the doctors said there was nothing they could do. She was gone before he could even know her properly. Maria's eyes softened. I'm sorry. Stephen let out a tired breath. I thought I could handle it. I told myself I would be both father and mother to him. But instead, I buried myself in work. I thought money would cover the emptiness. I thought comfort would replace what he lost. But no gift can take the place of a parent. He set the glass down on the table and leaned back. Every time I saw him struggle, every time he cried for her when he was smaller, I felt helpless. I didn't know what to do, so I avoided it. I thought keeping busy would make the pain lighter. But all it did was make him feel more alone. You can't change what happened, Maria said softly. But you can still give him what he needs now. He's still young. There is time. Her words stayed with him. Sometimes Stephen felt unsure. He did not always know how to handle a child's moods or needs. But Maria guided him. When Anderson refused to eat vegetables, she showed Stephen how to mix them into his favorite meals. When Anderson grew restless at night, she reminded Stephen to sit by the bed and hold his hand until he calmed down. Stephen realized how much truth was in her words. The week moved steadily, and Stephen kept his promise to himself. Anderson seemed more relaxed, smiling freely and no longer asking if his father was leaving again. Stephen could see the difference every day, and it gave him a sense of peace. One evening, while Anderson was in the living room drawing, Stephen's phone rang. It was one of his business partners. He stepped into the study and answered. Stephen, we need you to come to London, the voice said firmly. The deal won't go through without you. The investors trust you more than anyone else. Stephen listened in silence. His instinct was to say yes immediately, the way he always had before. Work had been his excuse for everything, why he missed birthdays, school events, or even simple dinners. But tonight he thought about Anderson in the next room. He thought about the way Anderson had finally begun to sleep peacefully, without fear of being left again. I can't travel right now, Stephen said at last. His voice was calm but firm. There was a pause on the other end. What do you mean you can't? This deal is too important. I know it's important, Stephen replied, but Anderson is more important. I've given work too much control for too long. Until I repair what I broke at home, I won't travel. The partner tried again, pushing him to reconsider, but Stephen ended the call politely and set the phone on the desk. For the first time, he felt no doubt about his choice. Later that night, Stephen sat at Anderson's bedside. The boy was drifting towards sleep, his eyes heavy but still open enough to notice his father. Daddy, he whispered, are you going away again? Stephen shook his head. No, Anderson. I'm staying here with you. Anderson gave a faint smile, his body relaxing as sleep took over. Within minutes, he was breathing deeply, at peace. Stephen stayed by the bed a little longer, making sure the calm was real. When he stepped into the hallway, Maria was waiting quietly. She had seen the light under the door and wanted to be sure everything was fine. Stephen stopped and looked at her. I turned down the trip, he said. For years I thought work had to come first, but I see now it can wait. Anderson can't. Maria gave a small nod. That's what he needed to hear. Children don't measure time in money or deals. They only remember who was there. Stephen's expression softened. Thank you for staying close to him when I didn't. For giving him comfort that wasn't your duty to give. I only wanted to make sure he didn't feel alone, Maria said. And you did, Stephen replied. But now it's my turn. I will be here until he knows without question that I won't leave him again. When that bond is strong, then maybe I can think about traveling for work. But not before. Later, before going to his own room, Stephen went back to check once more on Anderson. He was sleeping soundly, his small hand resting against the blanket. Stephen leaned down, kissed his forehead and whispered, "I'm here and I'm staying." From that night on, Stephen no longer measured his life by meetings, deals, or money. What mattered most was Anderson's smile, his laughter, and the peace of knowing his father was by his side. At last, Stephen had become not just a provider, but a father, and that was the greatest success of all.